A climber is down on Everest, 2 a.m., 8,500 meters. No oxygen, not moving. Their guide is on the radio. The nearest helicopter can't reach them. The closest help is hours away. And up here, hours is a death sentence. And now imagine this. A drone is airborne already in 90 seconds. It arrives carrying oxygen, and above them, the ridge is suddenly lit. Bright enough to work, bright enough to save a life. And the light is controlled remotely from someone's telephone. This isn't science fiction. This is technology that already exists. Well, it's being developed now. And when that happens, Everest is about to become something entirely different. And not everyone is going to like what's coming next. And today we're going deep into drones, into orbital light, into AI weather modeling and forecasting, and smart suits that monitor your body in real time. Everest is moving forward into the realm of technology. And so before we talk about where Everest is going, we have to understand something. Everest has already changed. It's always changing, moving forward. In the early decades of Everest climbing, fatality rates were measured in the range of roughly 3 to 6%, depending on how you define an actual attempt. And by the late 20th century, that dropped to around 2 to 4%. That even includes the 1996 disaster. And today, the fatality rate is closer to 1%. Pretty good odds for someone who has dreamed their entire life about climbing the mountain. And the most extraordinary thing about that is that the numbers of people dying percentage-wise has dropped dramatically, while the number of climbers has risen dramatically. And at the same time, the success rates have gone up. Back in the day, it was roughly about a third of the climbers would reach the summit, and now it's well over half the people reach the summit. Everest did not get easier. People and technology have made it safer and made things more predictable. Better weather forecasting after the 96 disaster, earlier and more consistent use of supplemental oxygen, fixed ropes on established routes, decades of accumulated experience, not one breakthrough, dozens of small improvements compounding over time. But the mountain is changing faster at a scale that we've never seen before. And just as the government of Nepal has suggested enacting serious regulations and restrictions on the mountain, saying that you need 7,000 meter peak experience in order to get a permit, that wouldn't be till 2027. The truth is that even with the risk, even with the possibility that one might die trying to climb Mount Everest, there are many people willing to accept that risk. In fact, the numbers of those coming to the mountain are higher than ever. 2026 could be the busiest year on record. And so let's talk about drones. When most people think about drones, traditionally they would think about photography. Oh, what a great aerial shot. Look at that image that we're getting when we see a shot of the mountains or somebody running along a ridge. But drones are starting to actually do work on the mountain. And I've talked about drones on this channel many times. I'm going to put a link in the description to a recent video I did that talked about how drones are literally changing the game on Mount Everest, doing some of the work for the rope fixing teams by bringing equipment up with the possibility of delivering oxygen bottles to someone in desperate need, or even a warm survival suit that could save lives, and the idea of bringing human waste down the mountain, garbage down the mountain, cleaning it up for future generations. Now, you have to check this out. If you don't think that drones are coming a long way, here's a guy who is introducing something called the SkySurfer Aircraft, the world's smallest personal aircraft, a compact electric vehicle which folds into your luggage and provides anyone with safe freedom of movement within the sky. This is real. This is not a joke. This young man, he's an engineering student and has a Harvard MBA. His name is Hunter Kowald. Now, whether any of you are interested in trying to fly around by balancing on the top of a drone or not, as a kid, I watched a TV show called The Jetsons, and people flew around in little cars, and there were superhighways with cars flying in the sky. It kind of seems like maybe we're getting there. The thing about drones is that they have an operational ceiling, not unlike a helicopter. Some of these drones have flown to over 6,000 meters, but there's not a lot that they can do up there other than just fly because the air is so thin. At the summit, for instance, the air is 1/3 the thickness of what it is at sea level. So the drone is having a harder time gaining lift off of the air and theoretically would have to work 3 times as hard. What about battery life, operation, enough blade surface to actually catch that air? So when you're looking at 7,000 or 8,000 meters in the death zone, you're dealing with a completely different problem. And the idea of carrying a human being up that high, I think we're many, many, many years away from that being a possibility. But the idea of bringing an oxygen bottle or some drugs to help keep that person alive, entirely within the realm of possibility, could be a game changer in the lives of many moving forward. Now, here's something that sounds like science fiction, but it is entirely real. And there's a young business startup in Southern California that wants to put a line of reflecting satellites up into the sky so they can capture sunlight and reflect them back down to Earth.
We're building a constellation of satellites to reflect sunlight onto the dark side of the Earth. Each one of these little satellites is reflecting sunlight to a customer around the world. We want to make it as easy as possible for people. So you can imagine using an app and bringing sunlight over to your exact location, wherever you are, in under 30 seconds at the touch of a button.
The company is called Reflect Orbital. It's building satellites with massive reflective panels, essentially mirrors in orbit. It's designed to take endless sunlight and redirect it down to Earth on demand, after dark, anywhere on the planet. No energy storage needed, no delay. Just imagine how that could transform a summit cone on Mount Everest if there's a climber in dire need of rescue. Just at the push button of a telephone, light could be sent right back down onto that area, making a rescue much easier to facilitate in daylight, not in headlamps, and perhaps a lifesaver. Ben Nowak and his partner Tristan Semilak, they are the real deal. They're trying to do things that can help provide clean, resourceful energy as opposed to relying on the old ways of doing things like burning fossil fuels and polluting the atmosphere. So this really isn't that far off. Reflect Orbital is planning to send their first satellite into space in October of this year, where they can begin doing testing. It would be a decade or so before all of their satellites would be positioned around the Earth, wherein on demand a person could program in sunlight, the use for rescues. Imagine a rescue at sea where there's been a shipwreck, or on a mountain where somebody needs light to be found. There are rescues here in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, where I live all the time, where rescues or helicopter evacuations are basically shut down as soon as darkness arrives. It's just plain and simple too dangerous.
We also heard a lot of people asking for sunlight for emergency response applications. You can imagine being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, somebody has an emergency, they fall overboard, you have to wait a couple hours for a helicopter to show up and provide some light. Well, we can do the same thing a lot faster. All you have to do is hit a button on either a phone or a satellite connected device, and we can get you sunlight immediately. And it's not very expensive. It's a couple $1,000s an hour, and that's about it. And you can use it for as long as you want.
This could be a game changer, and where else to test that than on Mount Everest itself? I know Ben, and one of his dreams has been to climb Mount Everest. And in a recent conversation we had, we talked about the idea of him climbing the mountain, pulling out his telephone, dialing in reflected light from one of his satellites and lighting up the summit cone of Mount Everest in the darkness. Now that's just to show and test its feasibility, but can you imagine to be able to dial in light for all the rescuers to mobilize to get there and actually save a life? This isn't a fantasy. This isn't science fiction. This is real. This is really something happening. Stay tuned, because I'm certainly going to follow this as closely as I can as we hone in toward the first satellite being deployed by this company in October of this year, 2026, and we'll be able to test it out and see how that works. Now let me ask you something. How many climbers have died on Mount Everest because of being unaware of bad weather moving in on the mountain? Let's just take the 1996 disaster alone. Had those people known about bad weather moving in, every single one of those 11 lives easily could have and would have been saved. Weather forecasting has indeed come a long way since 1996, but now there is AI weather modeling. It's a technology that's just being developed now. And those climbers, of course, in 96 would have been saved, but how many others in the ensuing years since then have lost their lives in bad weather, bad storms, not being sure of the weather window?
From a series of new AI weather prediction models, AI is spurring a revolution in meteorology.
The AI weather models are trained on 50 or 60 years of historical data, and they just learn to mimic, given what they've seen in the past, what they're going to see in the future. Well, I've been working on AI for weather for 20 years, so I'm really excited to see it come to fruition and see it helping people and really making a difference. And I'm excited about what the future is going to bring us, because this gives us the real possibility to be able to give us personalized forecasts, heavily hyper-personalized forecasts.
Everest sits at a chaotic atmospheric boundary, and it's usually in mid to late May of every year where suddenly that weather tends to calm down a little bit. And some years there are more days that are calm and cleared for a summit window, and then in some years, like in 2019, there are very few summit windows. Look at this photograph taken by NIMS Persia on the south side on May 22nd, 2019. All these people waiting in line. And now with AI-driven weather modeling systems, they're analyzing decades of atmospheric data, and they run thousands upon thousands of simulations, essentially doing what they can to predict what's going to happen in the future.
It's going to move up and slam into the Himalayan region. That Everest region, a lot of the trekking routes.
It certainly doesn't take the place of a human meteorologist, somebody reading the signs, but it does add to the possibilities of understanding what the weather's going to be in the future, good or bad. And so ultimately, the result is something that climbers could put a high price on, and that's to have some more precise timing, more localized forecasts, and a clearer picture of not just if conditions will change, but exactly when conditions would change. That's certainly not perfect. Everest is still chaotic, but that margin for error can get a little bit smaller with the use of AI weather modeling systems. Now let me take you back to the year 2000. I'm on Denali, North America's highest peak, filming a documentary with PBS Nova, and it was a documentary called Deadly Ascent, and we were there for weeks on the mountain, essentially filming what happens to people when they're exposed to long periods of cold and altitude. And on this expedition, that's when I had the privilege of meeting and working for the first time with Dr. Peter Hackett, one of the foremost authorities on altitude physiology. And there was also a NASA astronaut there, John Grunsfeld. And what John Grunsfeld would do every couple of days would be to swallow a pill that measured his core temperature, how he was reacting to stress, to heat, to cold, and to higher altitudes. And as this tiny telemetry capsule traveled through his body, it measured internal core temperature in real time, which was the key factor that was being measured. The idea was to gain a deeper understanding of what happens to the human body at altitude and when it's exposed to true cold temperatures and storm conditions. Now, fast forward to 2019, a woman named Roxanne Vogel, she did something nobody had ever done before. She climbed Everest and returned back home in a period of 14 days. This is with Adrian Ballinger's Alpenglow expeditions. At the time, it seemed outrageous. How could this ever happen? Of course, we know these things are happening at an even faster clip now. And on her way up and back down, she was wearing a smart shirt embedded with sensors monitoring her heart rate, her blood pressure, oxygen saturation, respiration, skin temperature. And now this was continuously above 7,000 meters in real time. So that's the leap from John Grunsfeld, the NASA astronaut, swallowing a pill measuring internal temperatures, to Roxanne Vogel wearing a smart shirt on the outside, measuring all of the vital signs of her body. And now imagine all that data transmitted not just for research on how she handled it, but directly to a guide, a base camp doctor, or an AI system trained to catch the earliest signs that something might be going wrong. Okay, this might be a little bit uncomfortable for all of us to hear, but over the years of climbing Mount Everest, the vast majority of successful summits have been using bottled oxygen. And now there's a gas being used by a small select number of climbers called Xenon, and it stimulates the body to produce EPO, which is a hormone that tells your bone marrow that it needs to create more red blood cells. Some people have called it cheating, or some people have said it's way too dangerous to use xenon gas because it's not really been tested. But the theory is that it improves your oxygen efficiency at altitude. The xenon gas was used by the 4 British climbers who were working with Lucas Furtenbach Adventures in 2025. And what they did was they completed their climb in about 7 days, doorway to Everest and back to their doorway again. And the mountaineering world, rightfully so, followed it, thinking we've come a long way, baby. But the crazy thing, at the exact same time, a climber out of New York, his name is Andrew Yushikov, he did that summit from his door in New York City to the summit in just under 4 days without the use of xenon. What both of these teams did do is they used the hyperbaric chambers, sleeping in these tents for months leading up to the expedition to prepare their body so it did grow a lot more red blood cells. Now I refer primarily to Peter Hackett again, who was interviewed by Steve House on his Uphill Athlete podcast. And what Peter goes on to say really is that there's no evidence that xenon is beneficial. One thing we do know, it is very, very expensive. One sitting or one administration by breathing the drug in for 30 minutes is about $5,000. It's big money for people who have been scraping together money for their Everest ascent, especially when, again, Andrew Yushikov shows that it's not necessarily to use xenon. And what Peter Hackett goes on to say, it's not been proven. There's not really any evidence other than that these 4 Brits, these special forces climbers, they used it and they were successful, but they used so many other aids to get to the summit that whether xenon had an impact on it or not is highly questionable. And he said that the danger, Peter Hackett said, was the danger is that if people could start buying it and using it unsupervised, using the wrong concentration at the wrong time, they could not only hurt themselves, but they could die as a result of using it. So the science in the Xenon realm is certainly not settled. Big support and props to those who are willing to go out and test by using it. I also want to be really clear to say that Lucas Furtenbach is one of the preeminent guides and expedition operators out there. He says that this xenon gas is really used as an additional tool to enhance resilience at high altitude. So perhaps as time goes on, we'll find that xenon is a vital tool moving forward. Every piece of technology that we've talked about today can make the mountain safer for an individual. But what the problem really is on the mountain is that the most dangerous aspect of climbing Everest is the other people. And so if Nepal were to restrict the number of permits it allowed on the mountain, the number of climbers, by requiring that a climber has 7,000 meter peak experience before getting a permit, would keep the numbers on the mountain down. Used responsibly, all the technology I talked about could make that mountain safer for each individual as he or she endeavors to get to the top of the mountain. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on these technological advancements that might or certainly will be coming to the mountain. Be sure to leave a comment in the section below. And if you're still watching, I hope you'll take a moment to subscribe to this channel. It means a lot to me when you take the time to click that subscribe button and consider joining the member section where there's tons of exclusive content. You can also find free exclusive content or certain levels over there on patreon.com/Everest Mystery. Most importantly, do a good deed. Don't ask for anything in return. Make the world a better place, one tiny step at a time. Peace be with you.